and welcome to this video on connecting to the galactic realms and connecting to your personal galactic family. I've been wanting to do this video for a while. I'm not quite sure why I haven't done it sooner, but we have Lionsgate Portal coming up this week on the 8th of the 8th, and it's particularly powerful this year. I've spoken before about it in previous videos, but it's too important to ignore. It's too much of an opportunity. We really need to have the knowledge and the heads up in order to be able to maximize our opportunities for growth, I reckon. So I've said before that usually around the Lionsgate Portal, the energy coming in is high, and it's Lyrian energy coming in from the Sirius star system. And they usually wake up their own starseeds first, but they're all working together, so we're all waking up. And this year is just particularly powerful because the effects of that energy, started at the end of July and will go on, past the 8th of this month. So it's kind of really important to understand what we can do with this energy. I am particularly interested in galactic families. As a soul realignment practitioner, that was where I first found out that we can use the Akashic Records to find out which is our soul group of origination, which basically just means that obviously we've all come from source. But where was our first stop? Where was our first port of call, so to speak, on our galactic travels? And some people, they don't resonate with this, and that's perfect as it is. Some people have only ever incarnated on Earth. Most of the people living here have just incarnated on Earth, so they probably wouldn't be resonating with this. If you're watching this video, the chances are that you're a starseed. You may know where you're from, which is fantastic. We've traveled a lot, I think. A lot of the older souls have traveled a lot, so we'll probably resonate with a number of galactic families. In fact, it's a bit like traveling around the world today, how we can resonate with different countries, and some more than others. It just depends where our soul has been before, where our soul feels comfortable. And we can tell that from truth bumps and feelings like that. And also we can have an inner knowing, just an inner knowing. So I think for me, the reason I'm so passionate about helping people connect or reconnect, I should say, to help them remember their galactic family is because finding out mine was life-changing for me. And so I found out a few years ago that I was an Arcturian starseed, and I was just like, oh my God, of course. Oh my God, of course. I was just like, yeah, of course. And it was weird because, of course, we haven't been brought up to believe in aliens. And so, there is an element of our human existence that finds this whole thing rather bizarre. But it just makes so much sense to me, especially if you have also read Dolores Cannon's book, The 3 Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth. I will put a link in the description to the book, but also I will put a link in the description to a video on YouTube where she talks about that book, if that video is still available. So when you read that book, this is my understanding, okay? My self-realizations are ongoing, obviously, like everybody else's. So take what resonates and what have you. But this is how I'm seeing it from where I'm at the moment. But I think what happened is, generally speaking, there was the Book of Enoch from the Bible was taken out by the powers that were, that wanted to control things. The Book of Enoch had information about the giants and the aliens, because they didn't want us to know about them. If we knew about aliens, we'd try and contact them, and our power or some of our power, shall we say, a source, an access, a route. You know, the paths to enlightenment, one of the paths to enlightenment can be communicating with your galactic family and accessing higher levels of consciousness. And if we didn't know about aliens, and not only that, but if we were kept in the dark to the extent that we humiliated people that did believe in them, then that would keep everybody in a low frequency, wouldn't it? And the thing is, though, we have free will. And the galactic realms know that, and they can't interfere with free will. So they really want to help us. I think some may come and they observe us and learn from us and stuff like that. And most of them are benevolent. And they want to help us on some level. But if we don't even know they exist, or we don't even know that we have a connection to them, how can we ask for help? So I think that's why I'm so passionate about this, because when I realized that I was self-realization, when I remembered that I am an Arcturian starseed, I was then able to use my free will. You know, I am ready and willing to tap into Arcturian consciousness. It's all consciousness, it's all energy, it's just consciousness in different dimensions and at different levels of consciousness. And I look at it like if you're like, we're in fourth dimensional, right? We're full of emotions and thoughts and stuff, trying to access fifth dimensional levels of consciousness, right? Our bodies are obviously third dimensional. And it's a bit like being at school where, you know, if you're in year 4, you can access the curriculum in year 5, and you might be able to access the curriculum in year 6, but you're going to struggle to access the curriculum in year 12, aren't you? And I see it as quite similar, because our passed over loved ones are usually in the 6th dimension, which means that we can kind of access their consciousness still when in the right moments. And our spirit guides usually are in the 6th dimension, which means that we can access that level of consciousness as well. And some people might have spirit guides in the 7th or what have you. Now, my understanding is that the Pleiadians can lower their frequency to the 5th, which means that I think we can all access that level of consciousness. And of course, they all work together. I have this other thought, you know, it's like, you know, we're working towards unity and not viewing each other as separate. And then, of course, you go into the non-physical world and suddenly you're all separate again. You're Sirian, you're Pleiadian, I'm Arcturian. And it's not like that, because everyone works together. And especially the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, and the Syrians work very much together. But when I found out or remembered that I was an Arcturian starseed, I could meditate in a pyramid of light, which I mention a lot. So you can use it for many things. And you can just invite the Arcturian consciousness in, and you can ask that beautiful question, what does my soul want me to know? What does my soul want me to know? And then really let go of any expectations of a reply. Okay. In time, it might get very telepathic, but in the beginning, just put it out there, because it's your free will. Once you use your free will, ask and you will receive. That's why we say that, because it's true and it's powerful, but we didn't know that we could ask. So yeah, it's amazingly powerful. So I've had numerous experiences of tapping into the Arcturian consciousness, and they help me in so many ways. I'm just sharing my own story because it might help you want to connect to your galactic family, which hopefully I can help you with in some way. But I've had numerous experiences with them, but one in particular was to help me release fear, which of course fear is anything other than love. And I was walking up the mountain with my dog, and I came across these beehives on one side of the path, and it was all overgrown on the other side of the path, so you couldn't pass that way. And right over the path was a swarm of bees. And my initial reaction was to turn around and go back, you know. And I heard this voice, And it said, if you don't face your fear now, you'll just have to do it again another time. And I was already sufficiently on my path to understand, oh God, you know, I could feel the truth in that. If we don't face our fears, transmute them into love, and activate our highest power, then, you know, we need practice at doing that. And that's exactly what I was given. Of course, I came out with all the limiting beliefs. You might identify that in yourself. As soon as you hear that, you've got to release that fear. Limiting beliefs. I might get stung. My dog might get stung. I don't need to go that way. You know, all these things were coming out. And it was just like, you can do it. You can walk through this swarm of bees and release the fear that you have. And I was like, I'm not sure how to do this. But one of my trusty affirmations, which I got from the lovely Sara Landon, who channels the council, I'll put a link in to her teachings as well. I activate my light and allow all that I am. Now, I've used that affirmation a few times, one memorable one in India, but other times as well. And it has really helped me like raise my frequency. I activate my light and I allow all that I am, knowing that all that you are is love, light, and God's power, God's love and God's power. Okay. I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. Knowing, you have to have this inner knowing that you are God's love and God's light incarnate. And so I said, I activate my light and I allow all that I am. And it was so crazy because I felt like I was floating. I floated through this swarm of bees, and as I floated through them, I was them. I became the bees, and the bees were me. I became my dog, and the dog was me. I became the trees. I became the beehives. I became the mountain. I was literally, I know it sounds corny, you know, to be at one with nature, but I became all of creation, and it was a split second. It was just a glimpse of that unity with the all that is. It was just amazing. And the next thing I knew, I had passed the bee swarm, and I was on the path on the other side, and my dog was safely next to me. And I felt lifted. I felt light. It was like the fear had gone. It was absolutely like a massive chunk of fear, like something outside of me is controlling me. Something outside of me was stopping me from walking on my path. You know, I was allowing something to stop me going where I wanted to go. You know, it's all that. This is like freedom to its highest degree. And just what was also funny at the time was, as I carried on walking up the road, there was no wind, right? So the trees and shrubs weren't moving at all, but I saw this tall palm tree and it was just swaying, right? But not in the wind. And it was so funny because I was obviously on some level, in some dimension, because it reminded me of my father, who's no longer with us. Well, who obviously is still with us, but not in physical form. But he was a born-again Christian, and he said to me when he was in physical form that he used to have conversations with God, and he would be able to understand the answers that he got from depending on which trees were swaying, right? And of course, at the time, I just thought he's mad. I ever thought my dad is just ever so slightly mad, and I'd laugh at him. And I saw this tree swaying, and I just went, "Hi, Dad." It was just really natural to do that. And he doesn't normally speak to me much now that he's on the other side, even though other people's parents do, but he tends not to. And he just looked, he just said, he didn't look at me, no, he just said, "You're not laughing at me now, are you?" As I'm talking to this swaying tree going, "Hello, Dad." And then he's just like, "Yeah, who's ever so slightly mad?" But anyway, I thought, now I've got to go back through the swarm of bees to get back. And I turned around and they were gone, of course. There was no swarm. There was beehives, a couple of bees maybe, path was clear. So what was interesting about that was a really clear voice in my head. And I went to, later on that day, relay that story to a friend of mine. And I didn't really know what I was going to say. But as I was telling the story, I got to the bit about a voice. And I think in my head, somewhere in my head, I thought it was God's voice. And I think I was going to say the word God. But when I went to say a voice, what came out of my mouth was the Arcturians. That's what came out of my mouth. The Arcturians spoke to me. And as that came out of my mouth, right, with me not having any thought behind that, I went, and then I had this wave of realization, because self-realization, it's energy, isn't it? It shifts you into another frequency. And I had this wave of realization. It literally came through my whole body as I realized, because that's what it's all about, I think, as I realized that it had been Arcturian consciousness that I had tapped into, and it had been Arcturian consciousness that had guided me. I feel quite emotional saying this now. And when I had that wave of realization come through me, I just cried, which crying to me in that situation is like telling me that it's the truth. It's my resonance. And you can get the truth bumps as well. People call them goosebumps, but I call them truth bumps. And I see this happening a lot with my clients, especially when I'm doing the soul profile readings, not just with the galactic families, but also with the energy centers and stuff like that. But I mean, especially with the galactic families as well. I had a couple this week who, as soon as I just mentioned their galactic family, because it's something that we can read in the Akashic Records, and as soon as I mentioned it, and I just read like the first line of the qualities or the characteristics or the strengths, or however you want to look at it, because all these galactic families have different qualities and characteristics, and we came here to express those qualities and characteristics within our human experience. And so just saying the first sentence, to them, they start welling up, and they just know it's true that they are connected, energetically and through the consciousness of these galactic families. And it's amazing. So that's how I felt as well with the Arcturians. So then I can just be ready and willing to tap into Arcturian consciousness. I am ready and willing to, strengthen my connection with Arcturian consciousness. However you want to word it, it's up to you. I can just say, hey, Arcturians, what does my soul want me to know today? I mean, it doesn't matter how you say it. It really doesn't matter. You can write it, you can think it, but I like saying it out loud. But it's just use your free will. It's about using your free will, because going back to Dolores Cannon and the 3 waves of volunteers, what happened kind of, I understand, was that the powers that were keeping us in the dark, very much so. And after the Second World War, we were really programmed, and they were able to put in, some nefarious plans to keep humanity's consciousness level really low and to keep the frequency really low. And so the galactic families, the galactic realm, were like, what can we do? We can't do anything without the free will, without people asking us, and people weren't asking for help. So they decided to incarnate as human so that they could help from the inside out. And this is what we call starseeds. And the 3 waves, according to Dolores Cannon, the first wave came in around the 60s, which would be my generation. And the way I see it is that, we've come here to kind of pave the way. That's why a lot of us are healers and mystics and emotional healers, just raising people's awareness to the importance of raising their frequency. And we're kind of paving the way to expanding, consciousness. And then the second wave kind of came in around the 80s or what have you. It's not strictly, I know second wavers that were born in the 70s or even early 90s, but around the 80s. And I think they're the ones that are going to be establishing the new systems in heaven on earth, as I call it, the new earth, as Dolores Cannon calls it. And then we've got the the third wave, of course, the children, the youngsters. And I find it very interesting because a lot of people refer to the youngsters these days as being lightweights or snowflakes and stuff like that, and all this sensitivity, you know, a lot of, you know, ADHD and stuff like this. My understanding is that these souls are just very, very sensitive because they have incarnated with the light codes that they need in order to create heaven on earth, in order to live in heaven on earth, in order to, you know, to create or finalize, I want to say, heaven on earth. And they're just too sensitive for the density of the matrix as it is, the density of the physical world that we've been so programmed in, that we were brought up in. So that's why they're so sensitive. They're not wussies or lightweights or anything like that. They are designed literally to raise the consciousness level of humanity. So they have come in already a lot more conscious than us. So I've talked before about talking to children, the young children, and listen to them, because they are still connected very much to the spiritual world. And although in the past that's been knocked out of us, like if you had an imaginary friend, people are like, don't be so silly, and then stops you talking to them, whereas in fact that was probably your spirit guide. Hopefully the parents are a little bit more conscious now and are taking the opportunity to let the children teach us about the spiritual world. I know a lot of the young mums that I work with are very awake, and just bringing up kids in a very different way to the way that we were brought up, you know, rightly so, and listening to the needs of the children. So there's your 3 waves of volunteers. But we got lost in the density. You know, we got lost in the density as well. But a lot of people ask, why are some people waking up before others? Well, to me, it's really simple. The ones waking up first are the Starseeds. They're the ones that came in already more conscious, already more experienced, the traveler souls, the souls that have been around a bit. That's why a lot of us have traveled. You may have felt like the black sheep of the family. You might have felt like no one understands you and all of that. And it's because it's all true. Because we came here to help raise the consciousness level of humanity from the inside out. And you wouldn't be watching this video if you were not a starseed. So let's get on to how you can tap into your galactic family. Obviously, you can book a session with me. I do Akashic record readings in my energy readings, which include, what part of that is looking at the galactic family. But I want to help you in other ways as well. So in the description of this video, I'm going to put a list of what I have found to be the most common galactic families. So if you read down that list, you may find that you resonate with more than one. It could be like I said before, you know, you incarnated in one first of all, and then you spent a lot of time in another one. That can happen quite a lot. It's a bit like me being from England, but spending most of my life in Spain. There's no big deal. That means that you probably have characteristics of both of them. So that's okay. You can explore that as well. But you can see which one resonates. You read them, read the names, just close your eyes and say the name. Okay. And just see how it feels. Because remember, when I said Arcturians, I got the truth bumps and wanted to cry. So I think when you get the right one, especially if you're in that meditative zone, I think you'll probably know. Or you can invite them into the pyramid of light. You know, you can go through all of them and invite them in, and ask them, am I a whatever starseed, and see. And just see, because it doesn't matter, because even if we can ask for help and guidance from galactic families that are not our soul group of origination, of course we can. Like I said, the Pleiadians are helping all of us. The Sirian energy, it's the Sirian energy coming in now, and I'm seeing everybody waking up. So, you know, we can tap into the Sirian energy at this Lionsgate portal, whether you're from Sirius or not. And so I suggest that you do that, and you can just feel into it, or you can check out online the characteristics of the different star seeds and see if one sounds like you. That's coming from a more left brain, fourth dimensional mental angle, as opposed to resonating in the heart. But if you're not resonating in the heart with anything, then you can always try that way as well. But just play with it and just see. And a lot of people say to me, I don't know why, but I just think I am. You know, they'll say, I think I'm from here. And why would you think it if it wasn't true? Why would you think it if it wasn't true? I mean, you know, if you think it, then that's where you're from. You know, it's, people know. I mean, you're more connected to your higher self. Even if I tune into you, you know, you're still more connected to your higher self. So listen to your higher self. If there's just one, if there's a galactic family that you just particularly like the sound of, I'm going to read a few and just listen and see which ones, you know, that you could be an earther. You could be an earther, which means you're not a starseed. It means that you've just incarnated here on Earth, which is great and fine. And I've worked with a lot of earthers, and they're doing their bit for humanity, helping raise the consciousness level of humanity. They just probably won't be talking so much about galactic families, so they're probably not listening to this video. We've got Mars, and we've got Maldec, or Maldec, as some people say. Okay, they're the closer ones. We've got Mintakan, which is in the belt of Orion. If you look at the star system Orion, it's in the belt. There's 3 stars there. I know a lot of Mintakans, and they're lovely. They're goody goodies in the fact that they can't understand the negativity of people to lie and cheat and go to war and things like that. They kind of lived in a utopian society, and they have an interesting relationship with water. They love it, love being around it, but they get freaked out if they go too deep or if they can't see down the bottom. But yeah, very, very gentle souls. There's Polarians from Polaris. We've got the Pleiadians from Pleiades. Procyans. Now, Propions are interesting. They're quite rare. They're actually, I find quite a few of them here in Spain because they're actually drawn to sunshine. They like the sunshine. They're also really good at breath work. They're breatharians. Doesn't mean that the starseed is breatharian, but it usually means that the starseed is good with breath, that uses the breath, is drawn to maximize their frequency using the breath. So I often suggest that Procyan starseeds work with the breath to heal themselves and to raise their own frequency and then become breath workers for others. They're also very good at being counselors and help. I think all starseeds are good at being counselors and helping others because that's what we came here to do. We've got the Sirian energy, of course, which I've talked a lot about. We've got Arcturian energy, of course, which I've probably talked in the past a lot about. Then we've got Spica, and this is interesting because it's actually very rare, but I've come across a couple of them. They feel that planet Earth is very crowded. You'll find that they'll be wanting to go and live in nature because they come from a place that's very sparsely populated, but very conscious individuals. So yeah, Spicans, and then there's Vega, and there's also the Vegans. So it looks like vegan when it's written down. They're the ones, they like to be in the limelight. But yeah, very loving souls, very inspiring. And there's Alpha Centaurians. Alpha Centaurians can feel quite emotionally detached, very, very methodical. Hadarians are very loving. Most of the Hadarians that I've read for are also dominant in 4th energy center, which is divine love and healing. So they're usually got a double whammy on the love, the unconditional love, without judgment and total acceptance, and it's their power. But of course, until they realize that, it can work against us. It's like all of our gifts, all of our divine gifts. If we're not conscious of them and we don't create conscious channels within our life to experience and express these gifts, they can work against us. For example, you know, I'm divine truth. So I was always telling people the truth when I was younger, and sometimes people didn't want to hear it. And so now I obviously have channels whereby I can consciously help people see the truth of who they are. So it fits in. So Hadarians are very loving, but if they're not aware, they can be really sensitive and like almost like suffer from loving too much because it's not structured. They don't understand it. Does that make sense? So but yes, and then there's the blueprints, the blueprinters. Are not much, they're very rare. I've read for a couple of them. They're really rare. They're from the furthest away, I think. And there's blueprint designers, technicians, deliverers, and changers. But they're kind of like the engineers. And blueprints, they're the ones that designed the game, I think. You know, the virtual reality game that we're all playing. I think they're the ones that designed the game. I don't know. That's how I see it. There's the Cassiopeans as well, and Andromedans as well, and there's others. There are others. I mean, and I'm sure there's plenty that I haven't come across as well. But I will put a list in the description and have a little read through it and see. You will feel, I think, in the cells of your body that whether you resonate or not, or meditate in the pyramid of light and invite the consciousness of each soul group in and have a little chat with them and just say, am I from your consciousness today? You know, just ask them and then see what happens. It will be quite fun, huh? And if not, then of course get in touch for a reading. But I think you'll probably know in your heart. So I hope you do. And I wanted to share this before the 8th of the 8th so that that you can take this opportunity at this powerful Lionsgate portal with the Syrian energy coming in, and just use it to tap into the Syrian consciousness or to tap into guidance to which is your galactic family. Yeah. And I hope that when you find them, that it will be as inspiring and healing and helpful and loving and all those wonderful things as my connection to my Arcturians. Is there anything else I want to say? I'm just trying to think. I think that's it for galactic families, connecting with your galactic family during this Lionsgate portal. I'll put a link in as well. Obviously I have a lot of information on the different galactic families, but I'm reluctant to just put that out there openly. So there are, if you look online, you will find a lot of information about the characteristics and the strengths and the qualities of the starseeds that from different galactic families. And I'll have a little look and see some that resonate with me as being similar to the notes that I have, and I'll put the links in the description. So that might help you as well. Have a fantastic Lionsgate portal. I love you all, as always. See you in the next video.